date. And basically, if you did that in the traditional finance, they would laugh at you. And then property records are another thing in terms of kind of, it's a big thing. I'm not as familiar with it in Asia, but in Six is a little bit farther down the road. I know a lot of big Fortune 500 companies, a lot of companies are like to throw around the buzzword blockchain, but none of them are trying to get there, but they can't actually get there. I talk about, so just from a Bitcoin standpoint, it's an offshore bank account. So in terms of when you can have a censorship-resistant store of value basically in your pocket, it opens up all new barriers. I talked about this earlier in terms of it's just a way to validate the data it stores, come together and say we want to basically have a verifiable truth of basically a database we can go to. I know no one's basically tampered with. And then the other ones are permissionless or public blockchains. Basically, I make a transaction with you, but the person that basically does the consensus, that validates the transaction happened, you don't know who actually does that. So that's the difference. The permission, you know exactly who's there, who's on the network, and a public, you don't. So basically, why now? Why blockchain now? So this slide is actually 2 years old in terms of kind of what I made it. And it has taken so long for it to get there in terms of there's no financial incentive. These companies cannot find the financial incentive because there's sort of there's a gray area that these companies basically remove. And they like to operate in the gray area in terms of, everybody knows that, Asian market, but in terms of the US monetary policy, I always like to equate it as like you donate to a charity. You technically don't actually really know where all that money goes. There's no way to actually verify kind of where that goes. And so I like to put it in perspective with the US government in terms of how much money we actually printed in 2008 when we gold. So there's still a steep educational curve that needs to be basically overcome in order to basically us move on to the next step. But I do think this is the next biggest financial revolution in terms of technology revolution in terms of from the internet. People like to compare it to gold. Gold is slightly inflationary in terms of 2% basically every year. You don't actually know. Bitcoin is a deflationary asset, but fiat currencies are designed to lose value. They're designed to fail. So if you look at the US dollar, for example, every year 2% inflation is supposed to, basically that's what they want the inflation rate to be. So after 50 years, you basically lose all your inflation. 30, 20 years ago, you used to be able to buy plenty of stuff for $5, $10. Now it's just you lose so much purchasing power, and so that's what people tend to forget. And so this graph is a little bit outdated, but just kind of want to put it into perspective on how early we actually are in terms of crypto. Line, Venmo, there's all these different payment apps that basically just become second nature to us, but it's getting there, but we're moving at baby steps. And so here are some of the investment themes. A store value is basically the first and foremost kind of the only one that's actually really there at the moment in terms of for Bitcoin. Offshore bank account, JP Morgan holds hundreds of billions of dollars offshore. Many high-worth individuals have bank accounts all over the world. And then so a means of payment, in particular emerging markets. So a lot of these countries, they go into debt. And so in order for them to repay these debts, they start to print money, print more money, print more money, print more money. Basically, in the US, is what I like to go back to, we have a $27 trillion basically deficit. In order for us to pay that back, we just print more money. We just print more money. And so I like to call Bitcoin is a hedge on the current financial system, and it's a call option on the fiat markets. So basically, no one controls it. And it's in basically palm of your hand. Computing power, storage, bandwidth. I like to call them utility tokens. I'm sure you're all familiar with them. The problem with that, the incentives aren't really there. So they're no different than carnival tickets. So if you basically can go to a carnival, I'm sure all of y'all have, and go to a carnival, go to a festival or something, and you basically give them USD and they give you tickets back, or whatever currency you want to give them. When the carnival's over, you want to trade, you basically want to give them the tickets back. That is the same principle for all these a lot of the ICOs that
CTO이고요. 연세대학교 교육교수이기도 합니다. 예전 국가의 매튜 의견과도 비슷한데 by the way, is it translated to English?
Yeah, I think we have translation, so you are welcome to speak your language. By the way, did you hear translation from the previous speaker?
I need translation.
블록체인 해가지고 이 부분이 조금 더 쉽게 일반인들한테 뭐라고 스트리트맨 아니면 오디널 피플 이런 사람들한테가 이거 쉽게 어떤 기회의 문을 열어주려고 보는 것이죠. 이것은 이제 좀 더 금융적인 그런 관점을 본다면 좀 더 어떤 그 유동성을 굉장히 향상시키는 것이고 다른 말로 표현한다면 VC가 지원을 자료에서 보니까 VC의 어떤 락피를 평균적으로 10년 내지 12년이라고 그러더라고요. 만약 이것이 5년, 6년, 더 나아가서 3년, 4년으로 어떤 락피를 짧아지신다면 엄청나게 또 리퀴디티가 높아진다고 볼 수 있겠죠. 바로 이 부분, 블록체인이 이 부분을 엄청나게 도와줄 수 있겠는데 그 방법은 이제 우리가 오늘 뒤에서 어떻게 되겠지만 벤처 캐피털이라든지 아니면 어떤 그런 그 스타트업, 어떤 그런 M&A의 대상 회사 이런 것들이 토크나이즈됨으로써 이 금융 지식이 높은 사람들뿐만 아니라 어떤 그런 기관들뿐만 아니라 일반인들도 쉽게 참여할 수 있음으로써 그러한 유동성이 높아질 수 있다고 봅니다. 이것이 그래서 흔히 블록체인을 이 월드와이드 웹 그 위에 있는 또 하나의 어떤 그런 이코노믹 레이어, 월드와이드 웹 이렇게 표현하기도 하잖아요. 이 블록체인을 여러 각도에서 볼 수 있는데 블록체인은 월드와이드 웹 위에 있는 또 하나의 이코노믹 레이어라고 본다는 극현에는 이런 것을 말하는 것이 아닌가. 블록체인은 P2P라는 것에 대한 그런 이야기인데 P2P. 그렇다면 이 P2P는 중앙 어떤 그런 통제나 이런 것 없이 개인 대 개인 좀 더 평등화된 어떤 그러한 기회, 그러한 그 알고리즘을 제공해 준다면 이러한 금융 영역에서 블록체인 기여할 바는 매우 큰데 이처럼 아까 말씀드렸던 그러한 일반인들도 쉽게 토크나이즈라는 걸 통해서 참여할 수 있는 금융이고 VC이고 펀딩이라면 이것은 좀 더 부를 더 넓게 나눌 수 있게 되고 그 증가된 유동성에 의해서 더 많은 부가 창출될 수 있게 되고 어쨌든 이것이 블록체인이 이룰 수 있는 어떤 그런 진정한 공유경제, 이 공유경제 새로 바뀌긴 한데요. 어떤 자본주의가 갖고 있는 어떤 그런 질병이라고도 볼 수 있는 부익부빈이 있긴 이런 어떤 그런 그 자본주의를 좀 더 치유할 수 있는 경우가 나오지 않을까. 블록체인에 의해서 토크나이즈된 벤처펀드, 금융의 패러다임이 일반인들도 쉽게 참여할 수 있는 더 나은 공유경제에 의해서 보완된 좀 더 치유된 자본주의로 나아가지 않겠는가 하는 내 생각입니다.
Hello, I'm Jason Kim at the Jumin family office based in Hong Kong. So I want to actually take a look at this trend from the investor's perspective actually. So basically, as an investor, I was so skeptical about the crypto field due to my lack of knowledge and understanding, and also the emotional hindrance. So as a director at the family office, clinging more to the traditional financial asset features ahead. The main reason is very paradoxical because of the fact that the great price rally and bubble faded away to the extent of which crypto fields are relatively calmer and being gradually accepted by the global financial systems with the implementations of common regulations and the clearing houses and hedging mechanisms. Many projects are finally beginning to make sense. Back then, just like the healthcare companies, the expectations from the project owners and investors were so high. Many project owners and entrepreneurs seem to understand the reality they face. So I'm just not here to just say the ICO days are over or IEO will be the only concrete way to pull in the investor for the project. But however, the idea of IEO by trustworthy exchange with much gain experience and also the reputation in the financial field will be clearly the way, one of the best ways for investors to find the project they want. So I think as an investor, and like I say, we have a great picture of it.
Need to be that first initial push for someone to go that's been in the space, that's done investments, that's just done the due diligence, almost a lead investor, not so much, but just takes that first initial step.
예, 이 어떤 과제나 아이디어가 처음에 이것이 뭔가 구체화되고 상품화되는데 초기에 많은 펀딩이 필요하다는 것을 잘 알고 있을 것입니다. 그 부분에서 지금 현재 이제 나오고 있는 여러 가지 방법들 중에 우선 과제의 아이디어를 이것을 어떤 밸류에이션을 할 수 있다면 그것을 가지고 토크나이즈 해가지고 크라우드 펀딩, 그건 ICO와는 좀 다른 개념이긴 한데 그런 것들도 나오고 있고 어떤 경우에는 한국에서도 나오는 경우인데 증권 플러스 비상장 얼마 전에 얘기 나왔죠. 증권 두나무에서인가요? 그 같은 경우에는 비상장 회사들의 어떤 자금난을 해결하기 위해서 비상장 회사들의 증권이 거래될 수 있는 플랫폼을 블록체인 베이스로 만들려고 하고 있죠. 그 이니셜 스테이지는 아니지만 어떤 그런 상장적 회사들이 어떤 대주주 지분을 팔고자 할 때 이것을 블록체인 베이스 플랫폼에 올려서 이것을 유틸리티 토큰으로 토큰화이즈한 다음에 많은 사람들이 참여할 수 있게 하는 그런 M&A 플랫폼, 블록체인 기반의 M&A 플랫폼도 나왔죠. GBC 코리아라고 나왔고 또 룩셈부르크의 어떤 그런 예를 들면 VNX 같은 경우가 바로 그 벤처 캐피탈 이런 것들을 토큰화이즈 해가지고 참여하는 이런 모델이 나오는 것이죠. 그래서 저는 아까 모두에서 말씀드렸듯이 이 블록체인 현재 어떤 그런 금융 시스템이나 이런 투자 시스템들이 블록체인을 만나서 더 훨씬 더 넓어지고 깊어지고 가속화될 수 있는 부분이 있다는 것. 이것은 스타트업들에게 당연히 좋은 긍정적인 환경으로 바뀌어가고 있다. 저는 그렇게 말하고 있습니다.
I know how will be the essential for the startup company to raise the fund through whatever that means, but also most of the time those companies cannot flourish as they promised. So for me, like whether it comes down to the ICO, IEO, or STO whatsoever, I think like just the important fact is who's gonna issue. Because we see so many marginal companies and already just the company that cannot go anymore attempt to raise the fund through these new technologies, and also I know it's hard for them to raise the money through the ICO anymore, but the world economy right now, ever since the great financial crisis sparked by the U.S. Supreme mortgage bust, and we live in an era of easy money and so much affordable liquidity right now. So at this stage, like almost we see that effect on real life. Almost like every country if you go, and we see the price hikes and price rally in almost every asset across the world. So it means like normally the individual people and also individual investors, they have the money and they can have access to easy money right now. So, but I believe that money can be people afford towards a startup company, but we just as an investor, I just want to be cautious of where to invest. And it is a good company, of course, and I don't mind investing in a good company through ICO as well. But like I say, I previously mentioned, trustworthy and reputation itself that matter most. And so if I choose, of course there would be the vacillation between the ICO and IEO, but I would rather go for the IEO.
I always like to say, in terms of the kind of store you go, just because something's tokenized doesn't mean liquidity is there. So it's kind of a cat and mouse game in terms of liquidity is everything, valuation doesn't mean anything. It's where you go. If you look at almost all of these tech stocks that have gone public in the US, I don't think a single one of them is in the green. So those days of ICO flipping, Pets.com, oh, there's 1 million eyeballs on my website, it's worth $100 billion, and I can just basically buy it at IPO and 7 exit a week later. I personally think those are gone, but you never know where that's going to end. Like you said, there's so much liquidity and there's so much like artificial stimulus because capital is so cheap to get with interest rates so low. All of these companies are just doing share buybacks, and you just be very cognizant of where you go, because most of the time when a lot of these companies get to go public, like Uber in its prospectus literally put verbatim, we may never reach profitability. And so it turns into almost the law of large numbers. It's a lot harder to go from $100 billion in revenue to $200 billion than it is to go from 10 million to 20 million. That's a lot of money. And so when you get up there to those big numbers and they have these massive growth projections and they're already doing 100 billion or 10 billion or how much money they're making, regardless of how big they are, it's see where the projections are and kind of evaluate the circumstances and kind of where you're getting liquidity and where it's coming from. Who's going to be providing that buying pressure? Is it that sought after? Or basically maybe all the sellers, basically these guys that have been locked up for 7 to 10 years, maybe they want to divest, they want to move on. So right when it goes public, you got to think about that in terms of, okay, these guys, their cost basis was 17 cents. It's going public at $12. They don't really care if it goes from 12, yes, obviously they do. They don't really care if it goes from 12 to 8. They just want to get out. They're tired of this investment. And in terms of from the company side, a lot of the companies don't even mind because they want to sell as high as possible for their IPO. Because when an IPO pops, that's how much they left on the table. So basically, if the IPO comes out at $10 a share and it pops to 20, they literally left that margin, that $10 margin on the table that they could have raised at. Because basically that's the market saying, here's what we think the price is. And so these companies want to raise at the highest valuation and take the most money, because that's almost the last time they're going to raise money if they need it. Fair enough, you got to think about it. But when the stock goes down, they can refinance their employee stock options. So quite frankly, not a lot of them really care that much, and they understand kind of they're a high-risk tech play, and they put that all in their perspectives. But you just got to put all the pieces together, and so that's why I say you got to talk to someone that's been in the space, someone that understands kind of what's going on. And so instead of throwing your dry powder blindly at some of these companies, I usually say to go to someone that's made investments.
전 금융공학이 전공도 아니고 또 금융을 잘 알지는 못하지만 그 과거에 어떤 기존의 어떤 금융이랄지 투자, 어떤 수익성이랄지 이제 매튜가 얘기하듯이 최고의 가격의 IPO를 하려고 하는 그런 모리베이션이라 이런 것들 등에 의해서 계속 그런 방향으로 흘러간다면 부익부 빈익빈 부자는 덕자가 되고 가난한 사람이 가난해진다는 이러한 현상이 더 심해짐으로써 건강한 사회가 되지 않을 수 있다는 것을 명명시했고 그리고 아까 제가 얘기하셨던 것처럼 이게 어떤 심지어 어떤 그런 스타트에 투자하는 거라지 인베스터로서 할 때도 이 어떤 믿을만한 것인지 그들이 제공하는 자료가 진짜인지 이런 것들 등의 어떤 그런 것을 파악하기 필요한 것입니다. 그런 것들 볼 때 이 블록체인 기여할 수 있는 분야가 많고 특히 이 LA 같은 이런 데들이 그런 스타트업들의 과제를 지원할 수 있는 그런 시스템, 론치패드와는 좀 더 다른 것이고 그건 좀 더 어리 스테이지에 그런 과제들을 발굴하고 그런 과제들을 지원해주는 그러한 것들이 있다면 좀더
Yeah, by the way, this IPO issue comes into headlines. So each day I see this WeWork news, WeWork disputes about its IPO plans, which resulted in 5 times decline in valuation. It's about Uber, which also lost something like 40%. And this early Materich, the founder of WeWork, right, something like 1.7 billion cash out. Yeah, and slightly less rich SoftBank, right? But all of this is about overvaluation of assets because there are some people who believe in the value of the assets. They can express their opinion by buying it on private rounds. But those who want to short sell, those who think that this is not as valuable, they can't do this because there is no liquidity, there is no margin trading, and that's why resource allocation is inefficient. Cargo delivery business to orbit, satellite, and so on, and tourism, and there are others who are skeptical, right? So we will be able to see the balance of this bearish and bullish views in form of the price, which will give a strong signal if we are moving our planetary resources into the right direction with SpaceX. Guys, what do you think about the signaling function? So will it help to do more great things while stop doing something which is not as great as few people believe?
17 billion, and that's still a long shot. But it's a great effort in terms of signaling. This is kind of the investment. This is what we're looking at. These are the companies we like, and these are the guys. Because behind the computer screen, there's only so much you can kind of do. And so, if someone, an individual or a firm, has made relatively good investments, you would think if they're getting at the same round, the same price as you should be able to trust them. But that's not always the case. But more often than not, it is usually the best case for us, the best signal.
Yeah, so, and how to make this participation in this new wave of asset classes more convenient, more easy to enter? Is there a use case for accounts which can be used as managed accounts with real-time net asset value and trades stored on blockchain? So it's easy to launch your fund without administrator, without audit, because it's all managed by exchange and blockchain. So you have a fund which you can do redemption, subscription, real time, because the system can sell its portfolio to pay cash, right? And also increase its portfolio with the new subscriptions. So would it make this hedge fund industry more available for newcomers? So there are more talents into investors in the game.
Well, the problem in the U.S. is all these hedge funds, they're called unregistered securities. They do a Regulation D offering. You have to be an accredited investor, which I think is entirely stupid because there are financial advisors out there who don't actually qualify. So basically in the U.S., you have to make $200,000 by yourself, or $300,000 joint, or have basically a net asset value of $1 million, excluding your primary residence, in order to invest in these unregistered securities. But all around the world, it's a lot easier. So that is kind of the barrier to entry for these hedge funds. Obviously, if you can report the net asset value of your fund, manage redemptions and subscriptions on a daily basis, it's great. But the thing about pay up for this, and so like you see in the OTC markets, there's a lot of these companies that have gone public. They don't do a lot of volume. There's not maybe someone there to pay for it, and so that's kind of the problem the whole industry needs to work through.
So whether it's the fund of fund for VCs and prime brokerage for hedge fund deals, and the clear criteria that separate both from each other have become very blurry. So this may be the result of the easy money and also the huge liquidity right now. So still one thing that separates hedge fund from the VCs can be that they seek to employ multi-strategies. So it means like they can take both sides, both positions, long and short. And in order for them to retain their targeted rate of return and alpha, so-called alpha, hedge funds are not only afraid of or but wanting to actually enjoy taking both sides, both positions. And so in crypto field, most of us have seen the future market and also leverage strategies and trading schemes, and the stepping stone for hedge fund to penetrate into the crypto space seems to have been placed actually. So, and I will actually continue from what Valentin and Matthew say, and just like a WeWork case, we saw so much bubbles in the actually asset prices, and when it even comes down to the enterprise value, we single out the WeWork case. The spread margins and expected profit margins are really, really narrow at this point. And usually the angel investors, the role of the angel investors were usually taken by the VCs, but nowadays VCs are working like the private equity fund. And also because of the
I suggest projects who are there to share their, to tell about themselves, and also I'm opening the Q&A section. Chris, after we have a small Q&A, would you mind if you ask the projects in the room to introduce themselves, maybe for 30 seconds, right? Okay, so we will seek for questions, and then I will put microphone to you, so you can help them to introduce themselves in Korean language, right? So they feel more confident about their presentations. So guys, are there any questions about yes, their liquidity for venture funds? Okay.
Let me ask you about the newer development from Matthew's comments. So there are clearly people working on Ethereum on what they call reversible ICO. That's basically from Fabian Vogelsteller, who developed the ERC20 token, right? And on EOS, people working on what they call milestone-based issuance, which is kind of the same, right? You basically move the whole industry back to the traditional venture capital space where you build and raise, and you build and raise and build and raise, and not doing this big 50, 100 million or even bigger round up front and then kind of drowning in all the money. You guys...
The future of their money. So is it about private banks layers like it works today? So, or it's about central banks, digital currencies like Lulier Rubini style. So every account is managed by a central bank, right? Including retail accounts. Or it's about currencies based on blockchain, managed by blockchains. So who wants to start?
Yeah, hello everyone, my name's Josh Igo, 안녕하세요, 여러분, 반갑습니다. I'm from the UK, but speak a little bit of Korean. Work for Salamantex. We do point of sale devices. That allows merchants to accept crypto, but they receive fiat. So many merchants, they are interested in cryptocurrency, but they put crypto in a big box called confused, scary, we don't really know what it is, we don't know what private key is, we don't know what decentralization means. So Salamantex, we go and we talk to merchants and we say, look, you can accept.
Banks are adapting to the current changes that we're seeing in the cryptocurrency space and the fintech space. So I don't think it's going to be blockchain or banks. I think it's going to be banks and blockchains. That's my perspective.
Hi, my name is Aiki Song. I'm currently professor of Korea University. I'm lecturing blockchain investment as well as deep tech and investment M&A, one semester and the other semester. Also, currently, I'm managing a company called Blockchain Investment Academy, and I have a very specially designed program for blockchain.
어떻게 보면 저는 그 사람의 철학적인 부분에 있어가지고 자유하고 어떤 인권에 대한 문제에 굉장히 최근에 기대한 사람입니다. 즉 지금 저희가 어떤 그 크레딧 카드나 아니면은 뭐 이렇게 그 현금을 사용하더라도 뭐 중국에도 그렇지만 저희는 자유롭게 우리의 밸류가 계속 나오게 되면서 점점 그 사람들이 선택할 수 있는 자유가 사라지지 않을까. 그러면은 이제 옵션이 두 개라고 저는 생각을 합니다. 사람들이 그 자유를 포기할 것이냐, 아니면은 어떻게든 유지해 나갈 것이냐. 그렇게 됐을 때 유지해 나간다라고 하는 어떤 그런 관점에서 봤을 때에는 블록체인이라고 하는 어떤 현재 있는 아직까지 굉장히 러하고 좀 얼리하긴 하지만 분명히 어떤 체제로든 그런 블록체인이 분명히 일맥상통하게 유지될 거라고 저는 생각을 추측을 하고 있습니다.
Thank you. Yeah. So, as I understand, there MakerDAO is one of the popular blockchain projects. So Mafia, they emerged with the idea to make a private, non-government digital currency. Yeah. So, but what we see is that there's a pushback from governments, from regulators, and big corporates. They just can't launch it. So, what is the way to get through this obstacle? Is it a market opportunity for private, stable but not backed by dollar blockchain currency? What is your view on this?
Oh, well, from my perspective, leave that for governments to even entertain it, and that's because it's a real threat to the existing banking system. If you open up the labour markets to all of the developing world, 1.4 billion users of Facebook, and you allow them to access basically a de facto US dollar, then also it allows capital to access lots of labour super cheap, and that's going to affect the developed economies intensively. So what you've seen already from the French and also the US is a strong resistance against this, and that's to protect their own labour markets. And I think that that will not change anytime soon. Instead, Facebook, if they want to pursue this, should look at emerging economies like Venezuela. They're having trouble and focus there, but I don't think it's going to work in the United States because there's going to be too much resistance. That's my perspective.
Oh, it's first time I hear this labor problem. That's very new concept for me.
Well, I think we can maybe spend the next 3 hours talking about Libra. But I mean, first of all, it's a stable coin, and we have to question what is it stable against, right? Libra is backed against a pool of currency. I think it's 50% US dollar, 27% euro, 20% Japanese yen, and then kind of it tails off. So what we're actually going to be stable against is clearly not the pure US dollar peg. So that's one kind of explaining what Libra is. Second point is not allowing Libra to go ahead or anything that is similar to Libra is a huge concern for US national security because the US benefits tremendously from having the US dollar as a reserve currency. And by being late to the game in terms of government issued, or it doesn't really matter where it's issued from, but by not having a US dollar pegged stablecoin, they are at risk of giving that up, especially with China and the movements towards the intent, and we can discuss the Chinese digital currency as well in more detail, but one of the, I was a US and I'm a German citizen residing in Japan, so I've got no horse in the race as far as the US is concerned. But if I was the US government, I would start getting my act together very, very quickly. Third comment on Libra is that from an overall blockchain and crypto ecosystem perspective, Facebook has 2 billion users. How great would it be if, with the switch of a button, actually crypto could get 2 billion users? If you look at different estimates, there are about 50 million different owners of Bitcoins out there. And so going from 50 million to 2 billion would be so super bullish for mass adoption of crypto. Again, it would be fantastic to actually see that happen.
네, 그러니까 제일 한쪽 끝에는 비트코인 같은 완전히 탈중앙화된 그런 것이 있고, 제일 한쪽 끝에는 이제 CBDC 완전히 중앙화되어 될 여기서 어느 쪽이냐면 중앙화가 굉장히 많이 되었기 때문에 CBDC하고는 가까운 거라고 보는 거죠. 그러면 이제 비트코인류에 굉장히 탈중앙화가 되어 있는 것들은 사실은 영향을 저는 덜 받을 거라고 보는 겁니다. 그런데 페이스북의 리브라는 CBDC에 영향을 받을 가능성이 상당히 있는 거죠. 둘다가 센트럴라이즈 되어 있는 그 에스펙이 있기 때문에. 근데 몇 가지 이제 그 게임 이론적으로 접근을 해야 될 거라고 보는 거는 뭐냐면, 그럼에도 불구하고 미국 입장에서 이제 달러가 있는데 왜 페이스북은 리브라를 발행을 해가지고 달러의 입지를 약하게 하느냐라고 이제 청문회에서 얘기를 했고요. 페이스북이 답변한 건 뭐냐면은 우리가 지금 여기서 리브라를 발행하지 않으면 중국이 비슷한 거를 발행을 해서 달러의 입지를 약하게 만들 거다라고 하는 논거를 이제 들고 나왔습니다. 그러니까 중국이라고 하는 변수가 없으면 사실은 미국 정부 당국 입장에서는 리브라에 대해서 이렇게 선뜻 허용을 해주고 싶지는 않은 마음이 굉장히 클 건데, 그런데 중국이라고 하는 변수가 생겨가지고 사실 오늘 광분제의 날 오늘 그 중국이 CBDC를 발행한다는 소문이 얼마나 많았나요? 아직 발행 안 했잖아요. 근데 중국은 계속해서 얘기를 하고 있죠. 우리는 모든 준비를 끝냈다. 우리는 한 시간도 발행할 수 있다. CBDC를 얘기를 하고 있죠. 그리고 실제로 그 어떤 나라보다도 더 빨리 발행할 가능성이 많은 게 중국입니다. 왜냐하면 중국은 그래야 될 절실한 이유가 있는 거죠. 왜냐하면 페이스북 리브라에서 바스켓에서 빠져 있고 중국은 달러가 미국이 달러를 가지고 전 세계를 지배하는 그런 패권 구도에 굉장히 불만족스럽기 때문에 인민폐를 국제화하고 싶은 그런 굉장히 강렬한 욕구가 있는 거예요. 그래서 그거를 성취하는 굉장히 좋은 툴로 볼 때 그러면 자 다시 거꾸로 가가지고 미국 정부 입장에서 이런 상황에서 그냥 페이스북 리브라를 누르기만 할 거냐? 그러면은 대신 중국이랑 대응하기 위해서 달러 CBDC를 빨리 발행해야 되는데 의사결정 구조상 미국은 중국처럼 빨리 할 수는 없을 거예요. 그러면은 바스켓의 50% 정도가 이미 달러를 차지하고 있는 리브라를 허용해줄 가능성이 상당히 이제 많아진 그런 이제 상황이 생긴 게 여기의 게임인 거고요. 이건 어쨌든 이 센트럴라이즈된 그런 커런시, 디지털 커런시가
중개되어 걸로 알고 있고요. 특히나 이제 텐센트의 마오tung 회장이 어떻게 보면은 중국의 이민회의 대표로서 이런 CBDC까지 아니더라도 텐센트에서 발행하고 있는 전자화폐라고 하는 부분들을 이미 충분히 각속을 했고 미국과 중국이 조금 틀리다, 리브라하고 텐센트가 좀 틀리다라고 생각을 합니다. 그러니까 이제 중국에는 중국의 CBDC가 있고 그다음 가장 큰 SNS 그룹인 텐센트가 있고요. 그 텐센트의 수장이 이제 이런 부분들에 충분히 각속을 해가지고 공산당으로부터 충분한 그 자격을 받고 지금 리브라 같은 경우에는 중국과 좀 틀린 거는 이미 기축 화폐를 가지고 있는 미국의 입장에서 이런 부분들을 그러니까 미국의 입장에서 리브라를 통해 가지고 테스트를 해야 될 것이냐 말 것이냐라고 하는 부분 때문에 굉장히 고민이 많이 있다라고 저희는 이제 보고 있습니다. 그래서 이거는 굉장히 다분히 정적인 부분으로 해서 이제 예견이 돼야 될 것 같고요. 저희 이제 개인적인 의견과 저희 회사에서도 이런저런 정보를 듣고 있지만 이제 리브라라고 하는 부분들은 결국은 이제 중국의 CBDC가 어느 시점에 어떻게 나와서 이제 유통이 될 거냐. 지금 보면은 14년서부터 중국이 CBDC를 준비해 왔으나 이제 리브라라고 하는 민간 기업에서 나오는 크립토커런시 때문에 어떤 빌미를 잡아가지고 지금 이제 시작을 하는 부분이 됐거든요. 그래서 그러면 이제 미국 입장에서는 이미 기축을 잡고 있는 입장에서 민간에서 한번 테스팅을 할 거냐 아니면은 정부에서 직접적으로 이제 개입을 할 거냐고 하는 정치적인 어떤 선택에 따라 가지고 리브라가 과연 20억 명의 자기 회원들을 통해 가지고 자기 테리토리를 넓힐 거냐 말 거냐라고 하는 부분이 결정되지 않을까 조심스럽게 생각을 좀 하고 있습니다.
By the way, what is the timeline and what is the first use case? Will it completely replace fiat yuan, or there will be some issues where this blockchain yuan will be used? What is the primary use case for this at first place?
I mean, if you look at it from a practical perspective, if you go to it's a cashless society already, right? So that we're really only talking about a different representation of the currency.
Guys, do you hear well? Maybe add some sound. Sasha, please make louder this microphone.
In 2017, 18.5 million people are not being allowed to buy train tickets, and 6.5 million people not allowed to fly because they had a not appropriate social credit score that if you apply the same to money, you can actually switch off people's money. And if you do this on a discriminatory basis, we are far away from the ideas of cryptocurrency or blockchain, which should be censorship resistant. And so it becomes even more so an observation stage. And the fun part about this is that we always like to beat up on the Chinese government on this topic. Now, if you took a look westwards and you look at PAX, for example, which is the third largest stablecoin in the US, it has about $250 million in market capitalization. Take a look at that smart contract. It actually has a censorship function. So if the SEC decides or the Fed decides that they need to freeze certain assets, there's actually a backdoor in PAX, right? And so we're coming back to the question, what is centralized, decentralized in these currencies and how safe are they? The very curious thing about this is that if you want to do mischievous things, cash is the most anonymous vehicle that you can have. And the less cash we have in the society, there's market developing where cash actually gets traded at a premium. And this is now totally funny, right? So if you really want to be untraceable, you need to get cash. There isn't that much cash, so you pay like $20.50 for a $20 banknote that is untraceable. And that's kind of the world we're moving towards. Everything else is traceable unless you get into privacy coins like Zcash, Dash, Monero, which, again, for the market I'm coming from, the Japanese government banned in 2018. So you can't legally trade them.
Yeah, you touched on many interesting points there. I think decentralization is the key thing. We've gone the complete opposite way, using public ledger technology, because it's a public ledger, to then allow a government agency to track all of people's transactions. Then when you talk about the social credit score, that's already quite exclusionary, then it's a bit Orwellian. So I don't know if you know the word Orwellian, but it really strikes that could be a bit of a worry when it comes to the yuan on blockchain. So let's see how that develops. It's definitely not the vision that Satoshi Nakamoto had when he wanted to make peer-to-peer cash. Now you mentioned some privacy coins. Well, you've got the Financial Action Task Force that have already made it clear that Dash and Zcoin, Zcash, Monero are not really going to be able to be traded on many cryptocurrency exchanges anymore. So they're being pushed out of the, let's say, the mic.
Dominated economy, and actually government tries very hard to make people use the local currency to the extent that if you go to a shop, the shops now give you receipts in both currencies. So both are quoted, and they're trying to get people to use the real. There is a Japanese-based blockchain company called Soramitsu that has a protocol. It's called Iroha, which has been part of the first batch of Hyperledger contributions. And Soramitsu has been working with the Central Bank of Cambodia to build a payment system from scratch. Right? And the challenge is a bit along the lines that I mentioned on the first panel already, or in Matthew's initial presentation. There's about 30% of the people in Cambodia have a bank account, but 150% of the people have a mobile phone. Right? So 3 mobile phones for 2 people. And interestingly, in building this payment system, although technically possible to eliminate the banks in the process, the central bank has decided to include them and make them part of the process, such that if you open a digital wallet on your mobile phone, at the same time it opens a bank account for you. And so this system is basically there to move the economy once from an unbanked economy to a banked economy, and secondly from a US dollar-based economy to a real-based economy. I think it's a very interesting use case, and in a similar way as kind of a shadow currency, US dollar, right, applies to many countries in South America as well.
Great. Do we have this kind of cases? Let's
동안 환율이 너무 빨리 바뀌기 때문에 그 스위프트 시스템, 그 트랜스퍼 시장에서 아르헨티나 통화를 받아주지 않아요. 근데 이런 거는 비단 아르헨티나뿐만 아니라 짐바브웨라든지 베네수엘라라든지, 그래서 그 자국의 통화 시스템이 굉장히 불안정한 나라는 이미 자국에서의 그 페이먼트는 모르겠지만 오버시스 트랜잭션을 할 때는 자국 통화로 쓰는 게 거의 불가합니다. 비트코인을 쓰는 것이 오히려 자국 통화를 쓰는 것보다 훨씬 더 잘 받아들여준 거죠. 그러니까 이런 송금 시장에서는 굉장히 많은 사례들이 있습니다.
들이 많지만 아시아 쪽에 블록체인 프로젝트가 많을 것 같다 싶어가지고 이제 엑셀러레이터를 만들어가지고 한국에 들어오고 싱가포르에 있는데요. 아무리 찾아도 저희는 이제 그 나라의 어떤 금융 시스템과 이렇게 그 상충되는 그 프로젝트에는 투자를 안 하고 있습니다. 그 이유는 이제 CBDC가 나올 거라고 생각했고, 그리고 그러면 이제 어떤 게 블록체인 프로젝트 중에서 좀 먼저 쓰일 수 있을까라는 고민들을 많이 하다가 결국은 텍스라고 하는 그 국가가 원하는 거는 결국은 그 국민들이 밸류를 애드하는 거에 대한 텍스를 받아야 되는데 이런 부분들에 대한 추적이 블록체인이 어렵다라고 저는 판단을 했고, 그러다 보니까 GDP를 생산하는 게 아니고 GDP를 세이브하는 쪽에 뭔가 사람들이 디지털 에셋을 만들어놨을 때 이거에 대한 크립토커런시가 주어지게 되면은 이거는 국가가 용인할 수 있겠다라는 생각을 저희는 해서 그런 프로젝트에 지금 투자를 하고 있습니다. 그러다 보니까 유즈 케이스가 나오는 게 리플 같은 경우니까 어떤 트랜잭션 피가 많이 비쌌을 때 그걸 세이브한다. 그러면 그거는 중앙에 계신 분들이 원하는 것 중에 대해서 정부가 그 에셋을 밸류가 애드된 것만큼 세이브됐으니까 인정해주지 않을까라는 생각으로 가능하면 저희는 텍스가 발생하지 않은, 밸류가 애드되지 않고 밸류가 세이브되는 쪽의 블록체인 프로젝트들이 아마도 좀 어떤 앱이나 이런 형태로 좀 많이 쓰이지 않을까 시장에서 그렇게 좀 판단을 하고 있습니다.
Okay, so countries just because the traditional banking is not viable because corruption, they can't take credit back. So they have too big credit risk. Then the traditional banks are not good there and penetrate the market, and the access to blockchain helps. It's like in Venezuela and Argentina. So when the people save their belongings, they save their earnings in crypto from hyperinflation. So if we don't have other use cases to mention there, let's think about the management of the new financial system. We talked a bit about Libra and other currencies which are backed by some kind of fiat currencies. What about the currency which is not backed by any fiat, but has its monetary policy? So there's a board of governors which manage its supply to target inflation, like traditional central banks are doing with their fiat currency. How do you see this system? How this board of governors should work to manage supply of this new independent, not-backed currency?
Well, we're really talking about governance, right? This governance, obviously. I mean, you could theoretically, I think many people think that.
Today I'm going to share with you just the search engine and the education part. So BooChat is actually the messenger app that's going to be rolled out very soon. Google search engine is currently in open beta where users are already trying. We are going to roll out our Google Mail later on in Q2 next year. Google Pay is going to be the medium where transactions are going to take place within the ad network. And then of course mining, we will open up the source code later on for miners to set up space or set up nodes so that they can also mine. And lastly, you can see Google Academy. That's the non-profit arm of the company that aims to educate the community about technology, emerging technologies, and so on and so forth. So what the Academy does is it reaches out to different groups of people as young as 4 years old, where we teach them about computational thinking. For the older kids, we go to schools for outreach programs to teach them about blockchain technology. We go to reach out to talk about emerging technologies that's happening in the world right now. And then of course for the tertiary schools, at the universities and such, what we do is basically we incubate students who are working on their research project to provide them with resources such as our blockchain so that they can actually do research and development in a decentralized application. So we walk with them through the journey of ideation, conceptualization, and eventually when they decide to commercialize their product, we help them with the commercialization process. So a bit about the blockchain, I'm going to run through a bit. So we work by the proof of work mechanism. So the blockchain works very similar with the CoinSpark protocol, if you're aware of it. We have database synchronization, as well as we try to ensure that all users do not have to provide us with data when they use it. So I'm not a very technical guy. All right, if you want the technicals of it, let me know and I can point you to the right person. Yeah. So a bit about the entire ecosystem. We have 666 billion tokens issued. So we're not doing any ICO, we're not doing any fundraising right now. This session is really to share about the technology on its own. Right now we have already listed in the secondary market. LA token will be the second exchange that we're going to list after DigiFinex. So a bit about users that, hey, actually we should not be commercializing your data for our own benefit. You should be paid for your data. Yeah. So the business model will work as such. We will work a lot with ad agencies where they will post their ads on it. So users click the ads, they're rewarded with the tokens. Merchants get visibility on it. Basically we want to help users or the community scale up from ground up. So I could be a regular user, say I'm a talented baker and I bake very, very good cakes, right? So if I don't have enough resources to put an ad banner or open a store, what I could do is I could create content on the search engine. So by creating content, as a content creator, I actually get rewarded. And so as I scale up based on the rewards and the contents that I create on the platform, eventually I can commercialize better, I can put more ads, I can even generate enough resources to open up physical stores in future. So the idea is really to help the community, and everyone in the community is helping each other to scale up. So a bit about the academy. Like I said, our primary focus is really to look at learners and make sure that they also understand the developments of technology that's happening in the world. So when I go to schools, high schools and senior high schools, I actually explain to them what DLT is, some of the use cases that they have currently in the space, and so on and so forth. So there are basically 4 verticals that I share with you. One is the education vertical, that teaches them about knowledge and skills, as well as experience. So we take in university students, we take in high school students to intern with us during their vacation. So we teach them, depending on the business function that they have, we teach them about the various business function of a technology firm. So if I'm a computer science student, I'm a coder, I'm a programmer, I'll attach them with a mentor in the programming or in the development department. So they understand how the blockchain or the DLT is coded, how the business application is coded, and how use cases